Mongolia ignores an international warrant for Putin's arrest. Who will be responsible for Russia's war crimes in Ukraine, and how to get help from the best foreign lawyers if you have suffered from Russian aggression? Our guest, Dr. Jeyson MacK'yu, a British lawyer, founding partner of a non-profit organization providing consultancy to governments and international organizations such as UN, has answers. Mr. MacK'yu is a sanctioned person in Russia and is proud of it. He represents Ukrainians in the Supreme Court of the United Kingdom. Mr. MacK'yu, we're glad you're here with us. Here in this TV studio, and also with us as Ukrainians, as Ukraine. But here is the question: why do you represent Ukrainians in international courts?
Simple. I believe in justice. Ukrainians have been wronged by the Russian aggression. They deserve justice. And that is all that matters, because it's of central importance that Ukrainians get justice at home and abroad. It's the only way that Ukraine can then move forward and rebuild itself after it wins this war. One of the issues is that the international justice system has some gaps in it, accountability gaps, which are problematic for Ukraine. And it's up to us lawyers to work with Ukraine and the international community to fill those gaps so that every aspect of your society is properly provided with justice and reparations. The international justice system is very much focused on state to state or against Russian state leadership crimes. And reparations compensation is very much to try and rebuild the state. You need your hospitals back, you need your railroads back, and all of this. What I specialize in is focusing on how to rebuild the lives of regular people, how to rebuild the lives of businesses, regular businesses, and how to provide them with justice. And to do that, you need to work in domestic courts around the world and bring litigation and take the assets from the Russians. Now, importantly about our program, what we are focused on, your government is very well focused on getting the Russian assets with the international community, the state assets. What we are focused on is getting the Russian private assets, the Russian war machine, those oligarchs, those companies. If we don't bring justice against them, there'll be an accountability gap because they don't fit into the international justice program. So they must be held to account because they're liable. And remember, their assets in the West, which have been sanctioned or not sanctioned, are much bigger than the Russian state assets in the West. So this gives you more opportunity for reparations. That's what we're going to target, and that's what we want to bring home for you.
We will talk a little bit more about what you do, but after Mongolia has ignored criminal court warrant of Putin's arrest, and after Brazil has an idea to invite Putin to G20 summit, do you really believe that international law exists and it does work and just have gaps, as you said?
Separate two things. International law does exist, and it's very important. It's important for rule of law and for the world order. The problem is with international justice in this system today is that it is politicized. You're finding this with the need for a special tribunal for the crime of aggression. You deserve it because the ICC cannot do it because of the political nature of the Russians not playing the game. Therefore, you have a right to a tribunal. People should not be getting in your way and stopping. Yes, countries will go political like Mongolia or Brazil or whatever, but that doesn't mean we give up with the system. It means we say, no, you're wrong, and we need to set it right. But this is at the heart of the program, the lawfare program, because the lawfare program has no political nature. Politics cannot interfere with it. It's depoliticized because it's about regular people and businesses bringing the cases in domestic courts. There's no politics that can stop it or interfere with it. That's the strength for you.
On behalf of Ukrainians, victims of Russia's terror, you have filed a lawsuit against Wagner Group. Can you tell us why not against Putin?
So there's real advantages. Well, first of all, because Wagner Group have committed horrendous crimes against Ukrainian people, and they need to be punished and made accountable in the courts, and we need to get compensation from them. The advantage of going after a private military company and its enablers like the banks that move its money around the world, like the people who produce its logistical support, they are all potential target defendants for the actions we are bringing. And Wagner has so many arms in so many places that we can get at bank assets. For instance, some of the private banks, Russian banks, that supported Wagner have 14 billion of assets frozen in Europe and America and the UK. That is 14 billion we can get if we can bring and win our Wagner case, which means it's coming home to Ukraine for Ukrainian people. So that's the reason why we've focused on Wagner, because it's very convenient for legal actions.
And earlier you have said that after this lawsuit has filed, according to British law, there is some time which is given plaintiff before actually the real meetings will start. So at this timeline, at what point are we now?
So you're absolutely right. There are all sort of court periods. The case, which we issued, I think, in November of 22, we started the first step in the case. We said very publicly at the time we were going to hold then until we raised the resources we need for the whole program. Because this Wagner case is just one. We have cases we want to bring in America, in France, and here in Kyiv. It needs resources. At the moment, we've been progressing with that for funding to make it possible, because we can't go into the courtrooms with no weapons. The other side will have lawyers, they'll come at us. We don't want to lose. We won't lose if we are properly resourced. At the moment, we believe there are very good chances that we will be funded shortly, and that will mean the cases can begin and to start to move forward.
And after Wagner leader Prigozhin's death, how this case has changed?
Well, in a way, it's even become better, because there's successor liability under law, under British law, that the person who takes over the company becomes liable. So it adds very interesting questions of law, which I don't want to bore you on, being a sort of boring lawyer that I am, but if you can imagine, if you sue the Russian state, you have something called state immunity, which protects them. But state immunity doesn't work exactly the same way when it's a successor liability. So the options of that case have just broadened.
You have mentioned that you focused on the private sector. Russian oligarchs do like London, Great Britain. Did they somehow address you, maybe to stop doing what you do, or maybe somehow protect their money? Maybe their representatives addressed you. Have it happened?
Look, firstly, let me say to the people listening, I'm not happy that Russian oligarchs have been in my country for these years, whilst Russia has been playing such tricks on the whole of the West and causing problems. And I think we're ashamed of that, and that's why we all support Ukraine so much. You know, we really do. But a lot of them have run away and left London, quite a number.
Is it a half?
I don't know the figures. I honestly don't. But I think the important point to realize is that they're vulnerable to these legal actions, the lawfare. They know they're vulnerable. Have they said anything, done anything to me? No. But Mr. Putin did sanction me, personally. So I think they'll probably keep away from me for that reason.
And you do cooperate with the Ukrainians who are nowadays refugees in Great Britain. Can you tell us how other Ukrainians in another countries, or maybe Ukrainians who do stay in Ukraine, can address you and cooperate with your law firm?
Yeah, so the program is lots of different legal initiatives. We have some cases against Wagner, some against the banks, some against oligarchs, some for the kidnapped children. We have a variety of cases. We have cases against the Russian Orthodox Church. In each case, a different section of Ukrainian society can bring the case. For the instance, in the English case, that is for people who were evacuees to London, or to the UK. They would be eligible for that case. There's a French case, those in France would be eligible for that. The case we're doing and hope to do in Ukraine and start for anyone.
Okay.
So each case is different.
Russia has committed at least 137,000 war crimes in Ukraine, and there is just crimes which have been recorded. President Zelensky has stated it recently. What do you think? Who should sit on the dock after all these crimes?
Well, President Putin for one, but presumably every Russian involved in it. And I think we'd be talking thousands and thousands of people should be on trial because they're criminally liable. Look, I mentioned the Russian Orthodox Church. So look at it this way. Why should they get away with it? They've been doing the propaganda which you know about. But think of this. They also provided training facilities for Wagner. That is aiding and abetting terrorism. They can't be allowed to get away. Now, unfortunately, the international justice system can't really deal with those sorts of crimes. You know, it's leadership crimes through the state, as we were discussing. So that's where you've got to use lawfare. You've got to seek justice against them using domestic courts around the world.
You have mentioned that all Russian who is involved in this aggression and these terror acts, do you believe in collective responsibility when we are talking not about Putin, but also about all Russians, about Russia as a terror state in general?
Well, those in leadership roles are liable under the law, and I believe in collective justice pursuant to the law. If you're asking me about an ordinary Russian who's in some village in the middle of nowhere that is going about their daily life, not looking, well, I'm not sure they are culpable under the law, of course not. But I'm talking about those in restriction, like...
But they do support Putin.
There's a difference on support. So let's put it this way. If you are a company and you're supplying weapons or you are doing logistics or helping on sanction busting, you are guilty directly of a crime. And there are cases you can bring around the courts of the world. There isn't a case for supporting someone politically, and no more than that. For instance, it'd be the same as supporting a football team. You can support a football team under the law. It doesn't mean you make a good choice, but you can pick whichever team you want.
But if you do support war in social media, for example...
Well, it can, because then you could be incitement under the law for inciting violence or crime or hate crime, whatever it is, or a genocide. So, yes, incitement is a crime, and they should be prosecuted and pursued. I couldn't agree more.
I would like to thank you for this conversation, for what you do for us, for Ukrainians. I wish you luck. I wish us luck.
Yes.
Dr. Jason МакК'ю, a British lawyer, the representative of Ukrainians in the Supreme Court of the United Kingdom, was a guest of our studio. Stay with the We Are Ukraine TV channel.